All set. I would like to call our meeting to order this morning and welcome everyone to AM Lockport Toastmasters. This morning, we are honored to have with us one guest so far this morning, and that is Paula Bass. Paula, we'd like to welcome you this morning to our meeting and welcome back.
Thank you.
Morning, Paula.
Before we begin with our meeting this morning, we always begin with an invocation. Our invocator this morning, Deborah Franco.
Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks this morning to have the opportunity to gather together. We thank you for your grace, love, and mercy. Give us a heart like yours to love purely and to know you and your unconditional and unfailing love. Help us to forgive as you forgive us and to provide for others as you provide for us. Lord, we give you the burdens of the world that we are faced with today, the virus, hate and division, deceit. We lift them into your almighty hands, trusting that you will bring healing, love, unity, and truth. You are a just God, yet through your grace, you extend your hand of mercy. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. This morning, what I would like to do is we're going to begin also with the pledge to the flag, and to make it so that it sounds perfectly across everyone's microphone, if everyone would just mute their microphones, please stay along with me, the pledge, but I will recite the pledge for everyone this morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This morning, we have an action-packed meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone that is with us. When we do our voting this morning, it will be via a poll. When you see the poll jump up on your screen, please feel free to vote for one of our speakers, evaluators, or table topic contestants. Also, if you have a role, if you would please put that before your name, that would help our Toastmaster also greatly. We'd like to also remind everyone that every Thursday evening, we do a social hour at 7 p.m., 7 to 8, normally hosted by the one, the only, our Kate Banks, and she's with us this morning. And we always have a wonderful, wonderful time with that. Without further ado, I would like to turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster of the day, and she will let us know also what the theme is. Please welcome Mom, Jackie Kenney.
Thank you, Larry. So my theme today was Decoration Day, which is an old-fashioned name for Memorial Day. And that comes from the fact that you decorate the graves to memorialize the people who we have lost. And it was originally started at some point after the Civil War. One of the most interesting tidbits of information I found about it was the connection to Waterloo, New York. If any of you have been an officer in Toastmasters, you've been to Waterloo because that's where they centralize officer meetings and trainings often. In Waterloo, New York, a local druggist was watching a widow walk to the cemetery to bring flowers to her husband's grave, and he thought this is something that should be done on a bigger basis and made a bigger fuss of. So the next year, which was 1866, the first Memorial Day was recognized in Waterloo, New York, and eventually it became a national holiday 100 years later. Lyndon Johnson signed a presidential proclamation, and he recognized Waterloo as the birthplace of Memorial Day. I thought that was an interesting tidbit. However, we have a lot of jobs to talk about this morning, so I would like to introduce our word master of the day. Is he up and with us yet? It's Ryan, and he did tell me he'd be here, but I'm not seeing
He's joining
him.
us right
there
now.
He is.
Yep.
All right, Ryan, are you ready to share with us the word of the day?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I most certainly am. So today's word of the day is Doryphore, and I will be putting it up on the screen in just a short moment. Doryphore, Doryphore. It's a noun, and it's one who gains pleasure from pointing out minor errors or a nitpicker. And so, as we go through the rest of the meeting and we're all listening intently, I hope that our other roles act as Doryphores in order to better improve our speaking capacity. Doryphore.
Thank you, Ryan. It's entirely possible we have people who are practitioners in our group, so we may hear from more than one Doryphore today. The next job is a vacancy, actually. My master had a work conflict. Sylvia can't be here today, so I'm looking for someone who would like to be the master this morning. Do I have any takers? Paula joined us. Paula, would you like to be the master? We need to unmute Paula.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Paula. And you can tell us a little bit about that job, I'm sure, since you used to belong to Toastmasters.
Well, the master looks for ahs and ums, pregnant pauses that don't go anywhere, as well as any of those uncomfortable pauses that we tend to put into our speeches when we've lost track of things. And one of the big deals for me that I have had to learn over the past 35 years is if I can't remember to stop, think, and then go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paula. And thank you for taking that on. And the next job we have is grammarian, and our grammarian today is Jen Zapla. Good morning, Jen.
Yes, I will be your grammarian, and luckily for all of you, I haven't quite had my coffee yet, so I shouldn't be too much of a Doryphore as grammarian today, but later on in the meeting, I may become one, so watch out.
Thank you, Jen. We'll all be careful. Our quote master this morning is Beth Banks. Beth, what do you have to share with us this morning?
Myself. I have a couple different quotes. I found a quote from James Garfield, who was not president at the time. He was a Civil War general and Republican congressman. On May 30th, 1868, he addressed people, several thousand people at the Arlington National Cemetery. And what he said was, "If silence is ever golden, it must be beside the graves of 15,000 men whose lives were more significant than speech, and whose death was a poem, the music of which can never be sung." And of course, I would probably be possibly a Doryphore if I did not include at least an excerpt from In Flanders Field by John McCrae. And it was written in the voice of the dead that had passed away. "Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us, who die, you shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. And those are my quotes for today.
Thank you, Beth. That was beautiful. And it is something to remember that Memorial Day isn't just about the family picnic. It's about remembering the people that have made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can all live the lives that we do. Am I seeing my jester this morning, Samir? I'm not seeing him yet, so maybe we will pass over that position and give him a chance to catch up. And our timer can tell us what timing parameters we're going to be looking at today.
Jackie,
Nancy Ferry.
we have a guest joining us too from out of country.
How nice.
I'm just letting him in, sorry.
Okay. Do you want to introduce the guest?
I will after our next roll.
Okay. All right. Nancy, please tell us about your job.
As timer, I will be, I guess, a Doryphore if you go over the time. Otherwise, I will be very calm and cool, collected, raising these colored signs. Green for reaching your time, yellow for caution, and red for wind it up. I think table topics is 1.5 to 2 minutes. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know we had some discussion at one point that might be different, but there we go. So I will be timing table topics, speakers, and our evaluators.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Our gesture master this morning is Marty Johnson. Tell us about your job, please, Marty.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
This morning as gesture master, I will be paying careful attention to facial expressions, body movement, body language as we speak in order to make points during the meeting, and I'll be reporting at the end. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marty. And finally, our quiz master this morning is Carol Halstead. Tell us about your job, Carol.
I will be listening to all the speeches and other talks, and at the end of the meeting, I will have a series of questions to see how well everyone has been paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And that sounds like another Doryphore type of position to me. Well, now we can get into table topics and see what Thomas Heldwin has prepared for this. I heard from him earlier in the week, so I know he's ready to go. Thomas, are you ready with table topics?
Yes, I am. Memorial Day in the United States, a national holiday. We get the day off, and as our Toastmaster mentioned, it is about sacrifice. But sacrifice for what? What are you sacrificing your life for? The American way of life, truth, justice, freedom, your God-given rights? Well, luckily the Federalist Papers were written soon after the Constitution by 3 of the founding fathers under the pseudonym Publius. You can be a Doryphore and pick at what they said, and they had several discussion papers, very, very long, and there are a lot of good YouTube videos on that to go over those. But what I want to concentrate on today for Memorial Day is a discussion of 3 of the threats that our republic would come under attack from in the future. They were very, very wise and knew what we would see. And so I'm going to list one, and then if you want to volunteer, please raise your hand on the screen, make it known that you'd like to answer that one. If not, I have 3 names already written down. Okay? So the first threat to our republic would be unlimited authority or a tyranny versus the opposite, the government having almost no authority, where it would not even be able to do half the things that it does. And the quote is, "Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is equally undeniable that whenever or however it is instituted, the people must secede to it some of their natural God-given rights in order to vest it with the requisite power." So I would like to have someone tell me a time when, or their thoughts on where we are, you think, in our government right now between tyranny and anarchy. Where is the government right now, and which way should it go? Anyone waving? No one's waving. So I'm going to give this one to Muklis. Oh, he waved anyways. Okay, we want to unmute. You have you have 1.5 to 2 minutes, and please use the word of the day, Doryphore. Muklis.
I hope we are here to support one another, not find pleasure doing Doryphore. Mr. Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. Memorial Day, Founding Fathers, liberty and justice for all, freedom, all of these are integral part of the American Revolution and the country that it has emerged over 250 years. I believe Memorial Day makes us remember the sacrifices of many, many, many soldiers, both in wars and in peacetime and in public service for the greater glory of this nation. What's amazing is how much we have come forward in progress and prosperity. We all enjoy the liberty and freedom that has been generated. More importantly for me, all of us need to be more responsible. With freedom comes responsibility. With all the blessings comes duties. How do we make sure we take care of one another, especially those who are in need? And I've seen many organizations support many programs to support the people in their neighborhood. Mr. Topic Master, thank you.
Thank you, Muklis. Is our guest willing to take on a table topic subject? It's Ario, I believe I see the name.
Yes, may I try?
Yes, would you please? Okay.
Sure.
Here in the United States, we have the holiday of Memorial Day to remember fallen soldiers, and what I'm thinking about what they died for, and the threats to the way our republic is set up. The second threat is mob rule versus infinite diversity.
Pardon, sorry?
Okay, so they discussed it as the smaller the number of individuals composing a majority, the smaller the compass or land mass within which they are placed, the more easily it is to not execute their plans of oppression over others.
Sorry, Thomas. I think
So
I have.
the founding fathers knew that they did not want. Okay.
Sorry. I didn't clear. I didn't hear you clearly. I think
Okay.
I want to reset my connection. I can go after. You can switch the speaker. I can go after this one. I need to switch my connection first.
Okay.
Sorry to inform you this.
No problem.
Hold on.
All right. We'll put him as third because the third one is an interesting one. So you want a great variety of parties and interests. So you make it less probable that the majority of the whole will have a common motive and not invade the rights of other citizens. So if you have a true democracy, 51% can beat the heck out of the other 49, which is why we don't do that. We have checks and balances set in place that even a small percentage of 10% can have their rights protected and be guaranteed the freedoms and liberties of everybody else. So with that one, I will go with who doesn't have a role. Oh, that person does have a role. Okay. Katie Banks does not have a role. So it's mob rule.
Yes, but Marty Johnston raised his hand.
Oh, Marty. Marty raised his hand. I missed that. Okay.
Go ahead.
Marty, please go ahead.
Available. Repeat the question, please.
One of the biggest threats, I think this is the largest threat to our way of life, our republic, is mob rule, where 51% can beat up everybody else, or infinite diversity, where there's so many small groups, nothing can get done. And we have to find a balance somewhere in between.
Yes.
You can, anything having to do with that subject, or you're allowed to do anything else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome, most welcome guests, Dory, and anyone else out there that I missed or can't see. I will not try to be Doryphore on purpose if I'm leaning more towards one side. However, the mob rule, I don't really, I know a couple weeks ago we talked about, Gerald Stevens actually talked about the mob a little bit in one of the meetings, mob, and I brought back some memories. I don't know a whole lot about it. However, I think that there, like as you said, there should be a balance in the way things are run in the country. I don't think it should be mob. There should be definitely a balance. There should be rules and order and law, and people should abide by them. And as Moakley's mentioned, you know, there's freedom and responsibility along with being an American citizen, as we all are. And it definitely makes you think on this Memorial Day, finding some middle ground, if you will, and not really wanting more bloodshed, because we already have been through that in many wars. And many of the people that we remember during Memorial Day, you know, some were killed and fighting for their country. I think that it's definitely important to have a middle ground. I don't believe really in mob rule. However, I think that there definitely should be authority, and people should follow the rules that government sets forth, so we can all live in a safe environment. That's my main thing, would be to live healthy and safely. So that's what I would say, Mr. Topics Master. I would say we'd definitely have to have a middle ground with respecting freedom and everyone's responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ario, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Sorry for the
No,
question
no
before.
problem. It'd be interesting to get your personal take on this.
Mhm.
One of the founding fathers of our government made it very clear that other governments incapable or incompatible, not compatible with personal security and the rights of property have always fallen short in their lives, i.e. the country ended, and they ended just as violently as they began because they didn't secure the personal privacy and secure the person, the person's protections. So they protect the people and their property from other people. And that's one of the things that we do make sure that is done on a daily basis. We have police and law and government and different courts for that. Can you give us a 1.5 to 2 minute discussion on that as you see it? And don't try to use the word Doryphore, please.
Okay. 1 to 2 minutes, right? Okay. Thank you, Table Topic Master. And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's one of the part of your national anthem. I highlighted it because that's so meaningful in regard to the questions that the Table Topic Master asked. We're talking about privacy, we're talking about freedom, and how government shall ensure that we as, at least, I'm assuming I'm American now, okay? We as the American people have to be protected, have to be ensured that our privacy, our freedom are secured and wouldn't be bothered by any other people, either by other Americans or from other countries. Well, personally to me, fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, the question that Table Topic Master asked is slightly difficult, but there's always point that I want to highlight. Your founding father has set up the standard of freedom, of the value of being the American, being a great nation like the United States of America. So in this moment, in this, what is it called, Remembrance or Decoration Day, there's no other thing that we can do, if I were American, to remember all the services of the people that has been appointed by the government to ensure our freedom, our liberty, our right to choose whatever we want to be, to pursue our dream, and to be respected as a human being. So, fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to be grateful of what you have today. Back to the Table Topic Master.
Thank you, Ario. Can I get a timers report, please?
Yes, I believe all three of our contestants qualified. Muklas with 212, Marty with 208, and Ario with 209.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And then that goes over to Ryan as Wordmaster. Did all of our people use it this morning, or are we going to give them a pass? Or
I heard everyone use the word Doryphore today in our table topic segment. But I'm only
excellent.
1/8 of the way through my coffee, so I'm feeling extra generous and not going to be a Doryphore myself.
Not being a Doryphore is a good thing. So as I take my last sip of my coffee, and I'll have to get another cup after this, Larry has probably got a voting that will pop up. Please select who you believe gave the best speech.
Thank you, Thomas.
And I will turn it back over to Jackie.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughtful questions this morning. And I
Hopefully they
believe
were not
Larry
too
has a,
difficult.
pardon me?
Oh, I was
I
saying, I
believe
hope they weren't-
Larry, okay.
Yes.
Larry has another guest to introduce this morning. Go ahead, Larry.
I would like to officially welcome to our meeting this morning, even though he has participated in table topics. Before his introduction, we wanted to welcome him and make him feel welcome to our meeting. Please welcome Ario. Hopefully I get it correct. Dauardoro, Widodo.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure being here with you all, guys. It's 6:30 in the evening in Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm from SCBD Toastmasters Club in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I also want to congratulate and I hope that I can, together with you, celebrate this Decoration Day. And kudos to you all, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. You're welcome at any of our meetings. And also, if you would, please post the time of your meeting in our chat. That way our members also will know when that is. And if you're also holding a virtual meeting, we would be welcome to hopefully join you as a guest.
Sure. I will drop the link for registration.
Thank you. I will now turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Jackie.
Thank you. I don't see Samir. I don't know what's happened to him. He assured me he would be here with a little humor this morning. If anybody wants to try and come up with something, we can use it at the end of the meeting to close things out. Now we will get into our speaking portion, our prepared speeches, and we're very excited this morning to hear from our newest member, Alexis, who came to our virtual meeting about a month ago and immediately filled out the paperwork and joined and couldn't wait to get started. So we're happy to have her able to join us this morning and give her icebreaker speech, which will be evaluated by Marc Campos. Marc, can you tell us about her speech?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. Good morning. As our club mom so eloquently said, it is very exciting to watch a Toastmaster deliver their icebreaker speech. It is my privilege to evaluate Alexis's maiden voyage into the Toastmasters world, if you will. She will be delivering her icebreaker speech as stated, which would be from Pathways. I don't have the evaluation form, but I can wing this. I've done enough of these. It is to become comfortable speaking before an audience and also an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about her. Madam Timer, her time is 4 to 6 minutes. However, I would point out to Alexis and to our guests at AM Lockport, we only issue you one get out of jail free card when it comes to time, and that is today when you deliver your icebreaker speech. So Alexis, don't worry about time. If you go long, it's okay. We won't hold it against you. And do you have the title?
I do.
Okay, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. I'm very happy to welcome Alexis, giving her icebreaker speech this morning, and her title is Inconsistencies Made Me. I can't wait to hear what this is about. Alexis.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm sorry about my background. I can't do much about it. I have limited space. So I'll get right into it and start with I was born Alexis Elizabeth Stone to two healthcare professionals in Niagara Falls in 1978. My parents used to work opposite shifts so that there was always somebody home with me. So I was always in the company of one of their sleeping bodies. And I was an only child, so I turned to art as a form of entertainment. And I remember at an early age, I made an art gallery in my walk-in closet, and I had removed all the clothes from the closet and laid them around my room. And I made one masterpiece after another to hang up in my art gallery. And the only problem was that I couldn't find the tape. So I used the next best thing, which was Elmer's glue. And my parents were really happy to attend the ribbon cutting ceremony. And they were the first patrons of my art gallery, of course, the only ones as well. But it wasn't until about a week later when they said, okay, this is enough. You can, maybe move your masterpieces to different places around the house. We need your clothes back in your closet, that they realized that my exhibit was more permanent. But there's, besides being an only lonely child, there were 4 main inconsistencies that really shaped my life. And the first being that we moved around a lot. My parents were always looking for different job opportunities. And it took me all over the East Coast. We moved in several different cities throughout Buffalo and Virginia, North Carolina, and eventually back up to Niagara Falls. And what that did was it made me build a wall up. So I learned to not make friends because I would be saying goodbye to them shortly anyways. And as I got older, I kind of grew envious of people that had that hometown mentality, people that had best friends since kindergarten, people that had connections and knew each other. And it was really frustrating, especially as an adolescent, to not have that home sense and that family feeling. The next inconsistency that really helped to shape who I am today is my religious affiliations. Because my parents moved from town to town, we were always trying different churches. And my parents are Christian, but they never really stuck with one denomination. They checked out whatever church seemed friendly, I guess. So I've been Unitarian Universalist, born again Christian, Pentecostal, Southern Baptist, and I finally received my first communion at St. Joe's in Niagara Falls. The third inconsistency that shaped my life was it happened in 1988 when my parents got divorced. A year later, due to neglect and juvenile delinquency, I became a ward of the state. And in 7 years, I was rehomed 36 times. But what I did learn from being with so many different families in so many different cultures was that the way these families showed love was through their cooking. So I learned all kinds of excellent recipes. My foster dad from Sicily taught me how to make all kinds of Italian dishes. My foster father, Gene, was from the South, and he taught me how to do soul food. So I can make collard greens and ham hocks and homemade macaroni and cheese. And proper Mrs. Chase from London taught me how to make shepherd's pie. And then finally, I learned how to make arroz con condelos and pollo frito from the family that adopted me, which was my husband's family. And that translates to yellow rice with pigeon peas and fried chicken. And the last thing that helped shape the last inconsistency that really shaped who I am today is my career path. I graduated from Lockport High School in 1996, January 2nd, 1996, the day that I gave birth to my oldest daughter. And yes, I gave birth on my graduation day. And it was 4 weeks later that I started CNA classes, and I worked in a nursing home for about a year. And a year after that, I became med certified and worked for United Cerebral Palsy. And shortly after that, I became an occupational unit supervisor for community missions. And I did that for a while until I moved out of state with my family for a year to one of my husband's family members was ill, and we had to go to New Jersey and help. So we did that for a year, but in looking for work, I ended up going to a temp agency, and I got placed in factory work. And that's where I learned that I actually enjoyed the factory work because I didn't have the same stressors and responsibility that I did in healthcare services. And when we moved back to Lockport, I found a job. What I'm doing now is a manager at Subway, and I really enjoyed it because it was a nice balance between the two, because I didn't have the heavy responsibility of human services, but at the same time, I still had the social aspect where I can talk to my customers and ask them how they were doing. But it was those inconsistencies that really formed me, because I felt so lonely as a child. I knew that I wanted a large family of my own. So I had 4 children, and I've raised multiple other children. I never officially became a foster parent, but my children had friends, and they knew that if they needed someplace safe to go, that I was the person to go to. So I have several children that call me mom. And in the foster homes, the last 20 homes I had were placements in Lockport. And that's how I ended up making Lockport my home, because I was able to finish all of my high school years in Lockport, even though I was with various families. But it was still, I learned to actually make friends and commitments, and I was able to do things that other people had done all their life, like join a sports team or start playing an instrument. And that was really important to me. Another thing that I found was my church family. In 2011, I became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I have been a member ever since. It was the first church that openly welcomed me and showed me more support than any church I've ever been in before. And in conclusion, these inconsistencies made me who I am now. I am a talented artist. I am a mother of many. I'm living in a hometown that I love, and I'm serving in a church that I cherish, and a job I have, a career that I enjoy. And that's me. Thank you, Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us this morning. Our next speaker will be Distinguished Toastmaster Gerald Stevens, and his evaluator is Larry Eggert, who I'm sure can tell us a little bit about his speech this morning. Larry.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I will be evaluating Dr. Stevens today. I have a pretty simple job. There's only a couple things I have to watch for. But the too much tea in the morning. The purpose of the project is to practice using a story within a speech and giving a speech that is a story. His time is 5 to 7 minutes. And do you have his title?
I do have his title. Thank you very much. This morning, we will hear from Dr. Gerald Stevens, A Hero to Remember. Gerald.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, Madam Toastmaster, and our guest. Memorial Day just passed. It is a day where people typically remember the fallen. But for me, it's also a time to remember family members as well. So we went out to Riverdale Cemetery out in Niagara Falls. My dad, my mom, my grandma are all right next to each other. I went with 3 of my sisters. It was like a visit, in a way, to their house back in the day. We'd go there and we just talk to the grave. It seems a little odd to do that if you think about it, because they're not actually alive. But at the same time, you're updating them, you're visiting them. So that is what we did. And talked about the kids and things that have been happening. And it was very nice. And my sister brought a bottle of champagne, which we shared. And that was pretty cool. And talked about the fruitful year we had. As many of you know, was former military in the Army for 6 years, part-time. I know Ryan also was in the Army. So we have other Toastmasters that were as well. And I appreciate the fact that many soldiers died for this country, and freedom isn't really free. So for me, it's kind of an important day. And I felt over the years, I've seen different war movies and different things on Netflix. And there was a series called Medal of Honor. I watched that a while ago. And I wondered how many people really get the Medal of Honor. And it's infinitesimally small, to be honest. There's only 69 living in the country. I met one of them in Washington when I went there last. That was pretty cool. Nice guy, very friendly. And then I thought, is there anybody from Buffalo that has won this? So I used the power of Google and I looked it up. Sure enough, we have a hero to remember. This guy was named Colonel Matt Urban. He served in World War II, and he fought on many fronts. He actually was shot 7 times. 7 Purple Hearts this guy got. So his nickname was the Ghost. And he was nicknamed this by the Germans because literally he probably should be dead. And he kept coming back to haunt the Germans in battle after battle, doing amazing things. He started off in humble beginnings on the east side of Buffalo as a Polish immigrant. Father was a plumber. He went to Margot's alma mater, Cornell, and he got his commission in the ROTC. And eventually he was a 2nd lieutenant in the Army in 1941. He fought in 6 different military campaigns. Started off in North Africa, the battle with Rommel, received the Silver Star there, and got shot. Seems like in every battle he got shot. Colonel Urban battled in Sicily. During this battle, he was on board of the ship going into the beach, and the anti-aircraft gunner was wounded. It was like something out of the movies. He took charge of the anti-aircraft gun and he shot down a German Stuka dive bomber, which probably would have destroyed the ship and killed everybody on board. After this battle, he battled in France. Went to Utah Beach, survived that. A member of his unit had a bazooka. He was shot and killed. He took over the bazooka. 2 German Panzers tanks, fully armored, hard to get rid of. He took those on with a bazooka and took 2 of them out. 2. This guy is definitely a badass, that's for sure. Definitely determined. But during this battle, he was shot again in the leg, and he went back to England. in England. He trained 40 people while wounded for battle. And he heard that his unit was being slowed down because they had a lack of inexperienced leaders. So he left the hospital with a cane, hitchhiked back to France, joined his unit to get them moving again. When he arrived, there was a tank, an American Sherman tank with this turret blown up, but the driver was still alive and the vehicle was still operational, stuck, and they were being pinned down by a machine gun. He low crawled to the tank, ordered his men to drive that tank and take out the position. Amazing. With a wounded leg. Later on, Colonel Urban battled in Belgium. He charged German machine guns with 2 grenades. This time he was shot in the voice box, given his last rites. He survived again. Definitely a tough guy. Went back to England for more rehab. After 2 weeks in the hospital, he got a pass to go to Scotland. Do you think he went to Scotland? No, he did not. He went back to his unit, who is now in Germany. But he didn't go on the front line because he couldn't speak, but he was in the rears doing his leadership roles in the written form and helping his troops. What a way to be remembered, doing many, many things. And eventually, Jimmy Carter gave him the Medal of Honor, and he survived and became a teacher in Michigan. Very, very cool guy. So in memoriam, please raise a glass if you have one. I would like to toast all the fallen, not only the soldiers, but also our loved ones. Share stories of them, have remembrance of them, have a laugh. Say, I remember the time they did this, and that was so cool, or that was amazing. Share in written form if you can as well, so they'll be remembered forever. Madam Toastmaster.
Whoa, I just jumped right out. I don't know what happened. Is anyone hearing me?
Yes, we see you and hear
Okay.
you.
We see you and hear you.
My screen just went crazy and I lost all of you for a minute there. Glad to be back with you. Thank you, Gerald. And now our final speaker this morning, Tracy, who was the alternate speaker and at the last minute was able to bring something together and give us a presentation this morning. Her evaluator is Michael Licata, who I'm sure can tell us a little bit about her speech. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests this morning. Tracy speaking out of the Pathways Level 2 Dynamic Leadership track, Understanding Your Leadership Style. And her objective this morning will be to identify your primary leadership style or styles. Madam Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes, and I do believe you have the title.
I do. Thank you very much, Mike. And so this morning we'll hear from Tracy. How's my style? Tracy Farrell.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. I have to tell you, I avoided this actual project like the plague. And it's not because I didn't like the test that was provided by Toastmasters and I didn't like the results, but it was more, I really disagree with the whole premise behind this project, because what I believe Toastmasters is talking about is management styles and not necessary leadership styles. And the traditional role of a manager is really to run a machine, perhaps maybe even an assessment department or a team of programmers. There's a clear input and output that really lead to the results the manager's looking for and responsible for. And the manager's job is to run that machine. In this view, people on the team are just parts, and each one's really interchangeable. They are hired for a specific role that was, and with goals that were in place long before they started that job, and they'll be there long after they leave that job. After all, we all are very familiar with the machine is more important than ourselves as people. But on the other hand, I believe leadership is really a lot more taking risks and challenges. Instead, the machine is able to be a little bit more agile and shift with the situation whenever it makes sense to make those changes. And sometimes the leader may decide it may be best to just junk the entire machine and start with something new. Leadership is really having a vision and inspiring others to follow that vision. And the team has to know what that vision is and really that role is. So maybe that vision is to update the assessment department and provide more fair and equitable assessments throughout the city, apart from the fact that the employees in that department all have a job, they have paychecks, but they also know what fair assessments mean for the citizens, for themselves, and for the city. So they're not just going through the motions, they understand the vision. And finally, a leader's vision has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And once they've finalized that vision, they're able to go on and come up with a new vision or a new challenge. Getting back to the project now, how does a leader inspire their team if they don't have good management skills? And to be honest, they don't. When I took this skills test, I found out that I was the affiliative style. So what's that style really? That's the person who creates organizational harmony and connection, and they build a strong emotional trust within the group. In other words, they have a strong need to be liked, and they want to like you too. To be honest, this really can work against that person because it can lead to complacency or underperformance. They also are able to handle stressful or volatile situations. So when an employee is performing poorly, they have no problem switching up that machine and getting rid of those poor performers. You'll see in this style, there's a big gap. There's complacency, and this person doesn't have a problem getting rid of them. So there is a little bit of a problem, and you need to work through that type of style. Not surprisingly, I scored lowest on the bureaucratic style, which is probably just the opposite of the affiliative. But that style is really good for military leaders who need to make quick decisions and where the leader establishes rules stringently and enforces them by a top-down style. And their decisions demand complete compliance. This type of leadership would never work in my office, just because I really believe that everyone in my office is truly competent in their job and really become resentful if I became a Doryphore. I also scored low on coaching, and this really is a skill that leaders do need to have in order to motivate and get people to believe in this vision. I absolutely have no patience to teach people new skills. And this is something I really need to work on, as I said before. But an inspirational leader actually has their vision, they bring it to other people and are able to coach them so that they follow that path. And if I want to be that type of leader, I have to not only have a vision, motivate others to believe in my vision, but also able to coach them to achieve that vision. And to sum it up, when the vision changes, Along with the situation, so must the management style. Because as Thomas Jefferson once said, in matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. Fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Could I have a timer's report, please? Madam Timer.
You may indeed. Madam Timer is a little slow with the mutiny on mute. All three of our contestants qualified. Alexis with 9:59, Gerald with 6:33, and Tracy with 6:22.
Thank you very much. And now Larry will put up our voting, and everybody can please vote for someone. Let's make sure that we give acknowledgement to everyone. Use the group chat to send messages to the speakers and let them know what you thought about their speech this morning, or some aspect of their speech that you want to highlight. All right, I think we need to hear from our evaluators now. So I'm going to call on Marc Campos to give us an evaluation of that icebreaker speech we heard this morning. Marc.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests, and especially Alexis. Alexis, congratulations on your icebreaker. It was wonderful to learn more about you. I thought you did a wonderful job, and once again, welcome to AM Lockport. So let's talk about Alexis's strengths as a speaker. First and foremost, I thought she was incredibly comfortable as a speaker. I did not sense a lot of nerves at all. She seemed to be very much at ease speaking to us, which for an icebreaker speech is truly outstanding. I didn't sense that you were overly dependent upon notes. You were looking away at times. You might have been referring to something, but you certainly weren't reading a prepared speech word for word. So kudos to you for that. That is really outstanding very early on in your Toastmasters career. Another thing that I thought was really strong, the topic of your speech was very serious for the most part. Yet at times you flashed this wonderful warm smile at the camera that was just such a highly effective tool. Make sure you keep using it because it was really well done in that regard. Now, building upon these strengths, I think you can be even more effective in just a few ways. One rule we have at AM Lockport, another rule we have at AM Lockport is never apologize. So don't apologize about your surroundings. You're doing us a favor by giving us a speech. We are privileged to listen to you. Don't ever apologize to us. Second thing, maintain that eye contact. Again, you were at your most effective when you were looking right at us. At times, your eyes would wander, you would look down, you might look away. It's really challenging in this format, but try to keep locked in on that camera if you can, because it's that much more effective. Lastly, very specific to the Zoom format, if you could raise up your laptop just a bit and maybe shift it back, then it's just a little bit better perspective for us to see you, but additionally, you have the opportunity to use your hands and incorporate gestures into your speech, which would just make you even more effective. But again, in summary, I thought you did a highly effective job. You are clearly a very strong and resilient person. You opened up to us quite a bit today. You shared a lot about yourself, which was wonderful to learn, including the challenges that you have had in your life, maybe finding that sense of feeling at home. And here's to hoping that Toastmasters wise, at least, you have found your home here with AM Lockport. So Alexis, welcome home. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marc. Our next evaluator is Larry Eggert, who will be telling us what he thought about Gerald's speech. Larry.
Thank you again, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. It was my privilege to be the evaluator for Dr. Stevens today. I liked the way he started and ended, because what he did was he linked a personal story to his overall story on Colonel Urban. He started by his family going to the cemetery, and of course it's apropos with Memorial Day. And he also ended his story, kind of continuing that personal story. I thought that was outstanding the way he did that. Perfect topic for the time with Memorial Day. He picked a great person to talk about. If you talk about a hero to remember, Colonel Urban would be one of those. Shot 7 times. A very dedicated man, no doubt. I like the term badass because that's what he was. I think Dr. Stevens uses gestures very well. If you look at his video, he actually pulled his camera back a little bit so you could see all of you, as opposed to me. I'm a talking head here right now, but you pulled it back because, again, as Marc said, you were allowed to, you could use your gestures more, and I think that was important with a Zoom meeting. It's hard to add the things that you need to really make it a super exciting speech, and you did that because you used your hands as you spoke, and we could see that. You kept the audience interested with the story, and you walked through the entire bio of Colonel Urban, and it's nice because he's a local hero as well. And again, it was just a great conclusion. Now, the way the rating form goes is what did you excel at, what could you work on, and what to challenge yourself. So to work on, I didn't see a lot that you could work on. I'm digging deep here, Dr. Stevens. You used the word cool 5 times, which is a good word to use, but and Colonel Urban was a cool guy, but you did use it 5 times. And what to challenge yourself, I think we all, maybe a challenge for everyone is we have to continue to get better at Zoom. I know I'm terrible at it, and you're a lot better than I am at it, but I think we all have that challenge. But overall, I thought it was a great speech. The intro was great. The way you ended was excellent. And in picking a local hero like that at Memorial Day, I thought was fantastic. So great job, Dr. Stevens.
Thank you, Larry. And our final evaluator is Mike Licata, who will be evaluating Tracy's style. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and again, our guests, and especially Tracy this morning. Tracy, I think you did a great job with this speech because as people that are in pathways and they're doing the dynamic leadership track, I do think this is one of those speeches that I think everyone has to give. So I appreciate the honesty in the beginning of your speech with describing how you feel and how your leadership style translates into the professional world. I think it's important to remember that everything that we do, even in the leadership tracks, is practical application. And I think that your practical application is immediate because of your position with the city of Lockport. And I think that the practical experience helps us become better Toastmasters because you're able to explain the different types of leadership, explain which leadership works for which situation, and I appreciate the detail in which you went into when you gave this speech. I think I also want to thank you, for stepping in this morning. I know it's never easy being the alternate speaker because you're not sure how much you have to prepare and if you have a speech idea. And I want to thank you again for stepping in. I'm going to be a little bit of a Doryphore here, but some of the things I think you can improve on is I noticed that your picture is a little bit delayed. I don't know if that's your internet connection. I don't know if that's the webcam you're using, but there was a little bit of a disconnect, and I know that internet problems are in doing one of the faults of doing Zoom is if you have poor internet, it's going to show through versus being inside Tom's Diner. So that's the only really nitpicky complaint I have this morning, but overall, I think you had a great beginning, a very informative middle, and you did a great job wrapping up your speech as well. I want to wish you good luck going forward, and thank you for sharing with us your speech this morning, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Madam Timer, can we have a report on the timers, please? Sorry, on the evaluators.
Gotcha. All three of our evaluators qualified. Marc at 2:52, Larry at 2:17, and Mike at 2:34.
Thank you. So all qualify, and now we can have a vote. Larry will put up the voting ballot. And again, I hope everyone has been writing notes to the speakers so that they know what all of us think. In this virtual meeting, it's a little difficult because they're not getting the kind of audience reaction that they might have gotten if we were all together physically. So they need to hear from us. That feedback is important. And now, last but not least, I'm going to introduce the general evaluator. I didn't forget about him. I thought I'd give him plenty to do. He can tell us what he thought about the meeting and the evaluators, and also call for the final reports. Mr. Licata.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our guests. It is the job of the general evaluator to evaluate the Toastmaster of the day and the evaluators of the day, and that's it. But before I start my job, I'm going to go a little bit outside of the job. And I'd like to say welcome to that gentleman from Indonesia. I hope that he noticed that Mukla's background was Niagara Falls, the Great Cataract. Lockport is 19 miles from the falls, and when he arrives in Lockport, he will get a tour of the falls that royalty would envy. So we can't wait until he visits us. Now, our Toastmaster. Good camera angle this morning, Jackie, and good eye contact. You handled the gesture situation. The gesture, this is a good lesson for all the Toastmasters, because gesture is not something we have to live and die with. It can be left out. It's a add-on that we added on, along with Gesture Master and Quiz Master. So if the gesture's there, great. If he's not there, that's all right too. So that was handled very well. That's not a small thing. You didn't get discombobulated. So I want to congratulate you for that. And you had plentiful use of the word of the day. Obviously, you are going to be the word of the day champ today. So I want to congratulate you for that. Marc Campos, evaluator number 1. Marc, it's so great when somebody gives an icebreaker. And I used to rely on Edna and Marilyn Beam because I knew that they would handle that icebreaker in such a professional AM Lockport Toastmaster fashion, where that person is going to be left, where that speaker can't wait to speak again because we did the evaluation correctly. And Marc, you did that correctly. And I was so proud of you when you reminded the speaker, never, never, never apologize. So that was great. You did congratulate her for staying on task, where she did narrow her focus. She wasn't all over the place with an icebreaker. She did go over the official time, but we forgive that in icebreakers. But we still have to remember that the 20 minutes was the all-time champ of an icebreaker once, way back when, Jim Luckman. And I want to thank you for giving her such a lovely welcome to our club. Larry, this is going to be so hard for me to stay within bounds because when I was working at the Broadway Market on the east side of Buffalo, I met a gentleman of Polish extraction who was also a veteran, and he filled me in on Matt Urban. So this is not your fault, Larry, but an argument has been made that Matt Urban has more medals than Audie Murphy, and he's not recognized, but that's not part of the evaluation. I apologize. Oh, never apologize. I'm sorry. So you did a nice job, and it's tough. I would not have wanted your job this morning because Gerald Stevens is an excellent speaker. He's a DTM, there's always room for improvement, and you were very good about catching them on cool. I'm very impressed by that, Larry. Good job. Mike Licata is 2 rooms away from me here at the Licata house. So I have to be very careful because we're in a situation here that I'll probably be a speech someday, but not today. So, Michael, you gave great praise to the speaker. You had good Doryphore points. And you did a good sandwich, Mike. Well done. And that's it from me. I don't have a list of the agenda. I apologize. So I would like to hand back that job of calling on the reports back to the Toastmaster of the day. I think that'll make the meeting run smoother. I mean, the poor fellow came all the way from.
Thank you very much, David.
All righty.
Yes, we definitely like to hear from him, and I'm sure Larry McKenzie, when he wraps things up and closes the meeting, will call on our guest. Our gesture master this morning was Marty. Marty, can you tell us what you saw? Where's Marty?
This morning I saw many great use of hand gestures. I saw people leaning in to make points. I saw sad faces. I saw smiley faces. I saw huge smiles. I'm going to start off with, let me see here. Prior to the speeches, Jackie, when you're introducing members, you used your hand gestures. And Thomas, during table topics, when you were talking about Memorial Day and sacrifice, and you said, sacrifice for what? And you had a puzzled look and you paused. That was something I picked up on, a facial expression, and turned to a smile, facial expression, facial gestures. You see here. Mowgli's, when he was talking about freedom and responsibility, he leaned into the screen at one point to make a point, which I thought was very good. And Dory was having a technical difficulty, as we all do at times, and he made note, he held up his ear, or he asked if he could come back and speak on the third opportunity for table topics. Marc Campos had some good use of hand gestures during his evaluation for Alexis. Alexis had wonderful gestures. You had, you showed us how you felt during your speech, and certain times you were happy and you smiled, sometimes you were sad and you frowned, which is good. It's good to connect with the audience in that way with your gestures. And a few more people and I will be done. Gerald, when you were talking about Colonel Urban, you said you were showing us how he was an anti-aircraft gunner, and you were showing us with both hands what he was doing. And Tracy, you used some good facial expressions, a puzzling look, a serious look, a happy look, when you're talking about your coaching style, management style, leadership style. And Dave, during your general evaluation, you used your hand gestures well. And our evaluators all used hand gestures. Marc, Larry Eggert, and Mike Licata all did a fine job. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marty. And now I'll call on our quiz master, Carol, and we'll see how closely we were all paying attention. Everyone probably wants to unmute themselves so they can jump in with answers to the quiz questions. Carol, go ahead.
I said Carol. Nope. Oh, where's Carol?
There she is. She's there.
I'm here. I wondered, what did Alexis have to use when she didn't have any tape to put up her artwork?
Elmer's glue.
Elmer's glue.
And do you remember where and what year that Alexis graduated?
1996.
Okay. And where does she work now?
Subway.
Right. And how many medals of honor have been given out?
Oh, a ton.
60 something.
69?
Were there
No,
69
there's
living?
67 living.
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 69 living, yes.
Lots that have been
And,
given out.
Not enough,
No.
probably.
What president gave Colonel Urban his Medal of Honor?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter.
Carter.
Okay.
Jimmy Carter.
And where is our guest Ario from?
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yay.
Okay, you've done very well.
Thank you, Carol. And our master, Paula. Thank you for taking the job again, and let us know how we did today, Carol. Or Paula, I'm sorry. Where is Paula?
Here I am. We did very well in Oz today. Everyone used it at least once, which years ago, and David will tell you this is a true story, years ago, someone for the word of the day, the word was which was hysterical. The word of the day, however, could have been really, because many used really. So some things after 35 years have never changed. But everyone used the word. Some used more than others. Alexis, I think you will do very, very well with this group because of the way they nurture and the absolute joy they find in new speakers. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Paula. And now we'll hear from Jen. Definitely going to give us some information on our grammar today.
I will, but don't worry, I was not too much of a Doryphore, as I mentioned earlier. Although, and Ryan may point this out, I did hear a couple people use the word Doryphore incorrectly. So just make sure if you're going to use the word of the day that you're using it for what it actually means. In addition to that, the thing I would like to point out as a general note is that most of our grammatical errors tend to be in the form of run-on sentences. And this can be as a result of restarts, as a result of filler words, ands, ahs, ums. But run-on sentences are not fun for people to listen to, and some of them become more apparent than others in our speeches. So I'd like to point out a couple people today, and by no means are these the only people who used run-on sentences. Those individuals are Thomas. Thomas, you're a table topics master, and it was difficult to follow some of your questions because you used a lot of restart. So that is one person. Michael, during your evaluation, I noticed a lot of, it was basically just one sentence. Be careful when you're giving the evaluation. It's hard to follow when you don't use correct pauses and punctuation in your speech. And Alexis, I noticed a lot in the middle of your speech, particularly with the ums and ahs. However, I thought you did an excellent job on your icebreaker, so congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And now we'll hear from our word master, Ryan. How did Doryphore do this morning, Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I am happy to report that Doryphore did fairly well today. I will, as Jen had mentioned, remind that Doryphore is a noun, so you can be or act like a Doryphore. However, you cannot do something Doryphoric or Doryphorically. So in using the word today, Jen, Beth, Nancy, Marty, Jackie, Thomas, Moklis, Ario, Ryan, Thomas, Dave, Mike, Tracy, all used the word today. If your name was not on that list, either forgive me for my hearing or shape up. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Ryan. And now I will turn the meeting back over to our president to award the ribbons. Larry McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Wonderful meeting this morning with a fantastic theme. This morning, before we award our ribbon winners, I would like to once again give our guests an opportunity to speak and to tell us how they enjoyed the meeting. I'm going to start first with Paula Bass. Paula also took a role this morning as our master, and we want to welcome you back to our meeting. Paula, how did you enjoy the meeting this morning?
I always enjoy the meetings. It's interesting to see the evolution of this club, and it has been a pure joy. Probably won't be here next week, but I'll catch you in the future. Gotta.
Paula, thank you. Have a wonderful day. We also have another guest with us this morning, and we'd like to welcome him all the way from Indonesia. Ario, thank you for joining us. Would you like to say something or offer anything to the group this morning?
Sure. Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you so much, everyone. I had lots of fun here today. Okay, please, today in New York time. And me and even my background also had lots of fun today. And I hope you also can, what is it called? Visit my club's online meeting, which will be this Friday at 8 a.m. in New York time on Friday. So you can register yourself. I will once again drop the registration link, and later you will find and be sent the, what is it called, the meeting ID. Thank you so much, everyone. I love you all.
Thank you so much, Ario. After I award our ribbons this morning, I do have two quick announcements. But without further ado, let's give away some ribbons. Drum roll, please. And our winner of Table Topics this morning, our best Table Topic speaker, all the way from Indonesia, Ario. Congratulations.
Wow, thank
our
you
Table
so much,
Topic ribbon winner today.
I'm flattered today, actually.
Yes.
Oh, no, it was very challenging questions, actually. I didn't know I didn't know the whole questions, actually, because it was so long and so complicated to me. But yeah, I'm just trying to, what is it called, just talk. But thank you so much once again.
You're more than welcome. You did a fantastic job. Thank you for joining us. Next, our evaluator, our top evaluator this morning is the one, the only, Mr. Marc Campos. Marc Campos, top evaluator this morning. Great evaluation this morning, Marc, and thank you, all of our evaluators. Wonderful job. And our speaker of the day, this is normally the time when we say fantastic speech, but not only fantastic speech, but fantastic icebreaker. This morning, Alexis, you are our top speaker. And Alexis, we would normally stand and give you a standing ovation, but we are doing that in the way we're all waving to you this morning. Wonderful speech, fantastic. We look forward to working with you towards your Pathways goals. Alexis, wonderful job. And thank you to our ribbon winners. Now, we do have a couple of business things that we do have to take care of this morning. One of them is that we have an officers election that has to take place momentarily or within the next couple of weeks. And I do believe Kate is working with our committee also to put together our slate of officers. And with that, June 27th is the training date for the new officers. It has already been announced. It'll be June 27th. It will be a Zoom training. Further details to come. So once our new officers are in place, the training actually happens before they take their positions, because the current officers are still in place until June 30th, but the training will be on June 27th. Other question, are there any announcements before we adjourn our meeting this morning? Announcements from anyone? No? There will be this evening at 7 p.m. If you are so inclined, feel free to join us for happy hour. It is where we get to toast everyone that joins us. So bring your favorite beverage, join us, and it's from 7 usually to about 8 o'clock-ish, a little bit after, or you can come and go as you please. But we will also be having a little toast and get an opportunity to share some ideas or things outside of the meeting. That'll be happy hour. There will be a post that'll be sent out to everyone else. Either myself or Kate will send it out via email. Thanks once again. Any last minute announcements? If not, our Toastmaster for next week. The Toastmaster for next week is listed as Steve Smith. We will check with him in regards to being Toastmaster. I do believe Jill will be giving a speech that week, so hopefully they'll both be on next week, but we will check with Steve. And if not, we may be looking for a fill-in for the Toastmaster role for next week. Without further ado, what I'm going to do is at this time officially close our meeting, but I will remain on with everyone if you'd like to do a little post-toasty. Thank you for joining us this morning. Have a wonderful week. Post Toasties is now in session.